Sweden, a country once admired across the world for its safety, stability, and social trust. A nation where doors stayed unlocked, where crime was the exception, not the rule. But today, something has changed. In recent years, Sweden has seen a dramatic rise in violence, shootings, bombings, organized gang warfare, and youth involvement in crime on a scale once unimaginable in Scandinavia. Some analysts now call it Europe's prime capital, not in overall crime, but in certain types of violent crime and gang violence that rival places far beyond the Nordic region. How did this happen? What really lies behind the statistics and the headlines? In this video, we break down 7 real reasons Sweden transformed from a Nordic safe haven into one of Europe's most talked about crime challenges, with context, nuance, and history. Let's dive in. To understand Sweden's situation, we have to start with the most visible trend: gang violence. Over the past 2 decades, Sweden's involvement with gang-related shootings and criminal networks has steadily increased, so much so that by the early 2020s, Sweden had one of the highest rates of gun violence in Western Europe. This isn't just petty crime. These are organized groups fighting turf wars over drug markets and territory. And these conflicts often involve semi-automatic weapons, hand grenades, and bombings, weapons rarely seen in other European countries of similar size. Even more striking, many of the people embedded in these networks are very young. Schools in Stockholm, Malmö, and Gothenburg have seen teenagers recruited into these criminal systems to carry weapons, plant explosives, or carry out attacks because juvenile offenders face lighter consequences than adults. So the first reason Sweden's crime profile changed is clear. Organized gang violence took hold and grew far beyond traditional petty crime levels. Sweden's reputation was always tied to equality and cohesion, but beneath the surface, socioeconomic gaps began to widen. In cities across the country, certain neighborhoods became economically marginalized, isolated from job markets and services, and socially segregated. These areas are often disproportionately affected by unemployment, poverty, and a lack of opportunities, conditions that around the world are correlated with higher crime rates. In Sweden's case, these socioeconomic fractures created fertile ground for gangs to recruit and thrive. The result? Generations of young people, especially those without strong economic prospects, turned to alternative social structures, gangs offering income, status, and identity. This shift didn't happen overnight. It evolved slowly as the welfare state's reach struggled to fully address deepening social divides. Sweden's generous asylum policies in the 2010s welcomed large numbers of refugees and migrants, particularly around 2015-2016. Integration efforts, however, often lagged behind the pace of arrival. While Sweden poured resources into housing and services, many newcomers, especially from war-torn regions, faced hurdles in employment, language acquisition, and cultural inclusion. The result? Concentrated pockets of individuals left on the margins of society, more vulnerable to recruitment by criminal groups seeking labor or foot soldiers. It's vitally important to stress this is not a simple story of immigrants causing crime, but rather a story of integration systems struggling to adapt, with some communities bearing the worst of its unintended effects. When people feel excluded, economically and socially, they are more susceptible to alternative systems of belonging. In many suburbs, gangs filled that void. Sweden prides itself on a humane, rehabilitative justice system, especially for young people. However, in recent years, that system also became a vulnerability. Reuters reported on cases where state-run youth homes became places where gang recruiters hunted new members, finding teenagers with troubled pasts and little supervision. Instead of rehabilitation, for some youth, these facilities became stepping stones into criminal networks. Gangs deliberately targeted young wards of the state, knowing they would face lighter legal consequences, and turned them into operatives for violent tasks. This points to a disturbing truth. When institutions fail to protect and rehabilitate, criminal networks exploit those gaps. This is a critical layer of Sweden's story. and it shows how even well-meaning social systems can be outmaneuvered by organized crime. Sweden's location, long a gateway to Northern Europe, is part of its charm, but it also makes it a strategic transit point for criminal networks. Open borders across the Schengen area made Sweden accessible not just for legitimate travelers, but also for drug smugglers, weapons traffickers, and human traffickers. Major ports in Malmö and Gothenburg became nodes in transnational smuggling routes that stretched across Europe. These international networks brought faster flows of illegal guns and drugs into Sweden than ever before, materials that fuel gang conflicts and violent disputes in cities and suburbs. In that sense, Sweden's crime situation isn't just domestic, it's increasingly linked to cross-border criminal markets. Sweden's justice system is traditionally designed around rehabilitation and rights protections, but those strengths became liabilities in the face of evolving criminal threats. Policies that emphasize due process and limits on surveillance, hallmarks of liberal democracies, made it difficult to quickly adapt to sophisticated gang tactics. For many years, politicians resisted harsher measures and expanded police powers, in part because they conflicted with Sweden's values of civil liberties. This created a delay in enforcement tools that other countries might use earlier in a crime surge, like expanded surveillance, witness protections, or aggressive gang disruption strategies. It wasn't until political pressure mounted that Sweden began rapidly adjusting laws to empower police and prosecutors. That shift itself became a political flashpoint, with debates over civil rights versus public safety. On one hand, this delay allowed gang networks to solidify. On the other, it demonstrates a core tension between liberty and security in democratic societies facing complex criminal threats. The final reason Sweden appears to have become Europe's crime capital has less to do with direct causal mechanisms and more to do with how the story has been told and perceived. Sweden's crime issues have been amplified on international media and social platforms, sometimes without distinction between types of crime, for example, gang violence versus overall crime rates, or careful interpretation of statistics. This has created a powerful narrative, Sweden as a crime capital, a place overtaken by gangs. In fact, data shows nuances. Sweden's overall homicide rate is not the highest in Europe, and in recent years, some key crime categories have declined thanks to new policing strategies. However, a few factors fuel perception. Dramatic increases in shootings compared to historical lows, high-profile incidents and youth involvement in violent crime, politicized debates over immigration, policing, and social policy, international comparisons that isolate specific crime types instead of broad crime statistics. So part of Sweden's crime capital label is about perception and context as much as reality. So what really happened? Sweden did not suddenly become chaotic overnight. It didn't abandon its values, nor did it break under the weight of crime alone. Rather, a confluence of long-term social trends, gang organization, socioeconomic division, policy lags, institutional gaps, geographic factors, and narrative amplification combined to create a situation that looks and feels drastic on the world stage. At its core, this is a story about adaptation, how a society built for trust and cohesion responds when new challenges demand different tools. Sweden's experience is a cautionary tale, but also an ongoing one. Authorities are now recalibrating, crime rates in some areas are falling, and innovative solutions are being tested. The lesson isn't that Sweden failed, it's that no society is immune from the pressures of change, and responding effectively requires understanding every layer of the problem. If you found this breakdown insightful, hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We've got more deep dives into global issues that shape our world, explained clearly, fairly, and with context you won't get anywhere else. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.